Now, the last surviving member of the British team which conquered Everest has died at the age of 89. George Lowe's participation in Sir Edmund Hillary's expedition was described as an astonishing feat of endurance. He also explored Antarctica, Greenland and Ethiopia. So what do today's adventurers have left to discover? It's 200 years this week since the birth of the Victorian explorer David Livingstone. His motto was to go anywhere as long as it's forward. He wrestled lions and attained the status of a national hero, celebrated for his missionary work and becoming one of the first Westerners to cross Africa. In the last century, there was still much to discover. Colonel Blashford Snell, the founder of the expeditions group Raleigh International, was part of the first team to navigate the entire Congo River in the 70s. He also oversaw the first car journey from Alaska to Cape Horn in a Range Rover.
When someone says to me something can't be found or can't be done or can't be solved, as a Royal Engineer, I look at it and say, there must be a way, we must find a way of doing it. But of course, the whole world has changed, and today I think the most important contribution I can make is to try to inspire young people to become explorers, investigators, and most importantly now is to take their part in fighting to save the environment, the people, the fauna and the flora.
But is the machine now taking up where men like him left off? Robotic missions, like this one reaching the deepest volcanic vent under the sea, are all the rage. Titanic film director James Cameron spent $8 million on a craft to take him down to the Mariana Trench in the Pacific, reaching the ocean's deepest point. Sir Richard Branson dreams of colonising Mars, and he's also planning an underwater trip 5 miles deep to the floor of the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic Ocean. Joining me now is the polar explorer Pen Haddow and Dr. John Copley from the University of Southampton, whose research includes using robots to explore the depths of the ocean. Dr. John Copley first, is it time for man to make way for the machine?
Well, the machine's really an extension of our bodies. Now in the 21st century, it really doesn't matter where our bodies are. When we're using our remotely operated vehicles, its cameras become our eyes, its manipulators become our arms. And when we're in the control centre, our minds are on the ocean floor. And that means we can take anyone anywhere with us. So on our recent expedition last month in the Cayman Trough, we linked up live with schools around the UK so their pupils could share in what we were doing.
There's no doubt, is there, Pen Haddow, you can take a bit of a back seat and let the robot do the difficult stuff, yeah?
No, I think that a role for explorers at the moment, a classic role, would be to ground truth, as we would say, the satellites. So satellites have can image much of the surface of the Earth and indeed below the surface of the Earth, but it needs to be checked as to what it is they're actually looking at. So there's a role for people to do that.
Well, in terms of what they're looking at, what more is there to discover now? What useful exploration can be done, whether by man or machine?
We still don't have a completely accurate map of 2/3 of our planet, most of which is covered by very deep ocean, and even less idea of what's going on down there, what lives down there. And there are tremendous opportunities down there. Last week, we heard the Prime Minister say that deep-sea mining could be worth $40 billion to the UK economy. There are undoubtedly resources we need for our continued growth and development, but at the same time, we've got this responsibility for our stewardship of the deep ocean. So it's really important we take this journey together, and we're all involved in the choices for its future.
But some of it is a bit of a sort of vanity project, isn't it? When you look at, Richard Branson and, James Cameron, Eric Schmidt, they're all sort of vying with each other to do these deep-sea projects.
I think there's a distinction to be made between adventure, which really is a form of extreme tourism and is ultimately about their own interests, and exploration, which is about finding something out that is of value to the wider community. And I think that's, and explorers, what they can do per se, the human as opposed to the robot, but actually I have to say some of these robotic devices as well almost have characters, is they create storylines, and that is what interests people. If you want to draw people into the issues of our time with relation to the environment, you want humans making supreme efforts and finding things out, and we get drawn into the stories.
We've been talking today about the death of Chinua Achebe, the grandfather of African literature, and there's no doubt, is there, that white men adventuring has had a bit of a toxic legacy in the form of imperialism, for example?
Yes, well, I'm not sure that's probably my field of expertise, and it's probably true. But I would say that what's traditionally people associate explorers with finding out where everything is. mapping where the thing. We know where all the coastlines, the deserts, the rainforests, the ice sheets and so on. We know where everything is now. The role of exploration, it's never been more important or urgent, I would suggest, in human history, is to find out how these systems work. But
adventuring and exploring hasn't had a totally benign history, has it? I mean, OK, great discoveries made, but also this toxic legacy, imperialism, is one example.
Well, I think that's one of the things for the future, is that technology, in a way, democratises exploration. I don't want to be an ambassador for the deep ocean and go and tell you what effects our lives are having down there just because I visited it. I want you to be able to come with us and see it for yourself. And that's what I think technology will allow us to do in the future, so we can take these hard choices together in a more informed way.
It is it's quite blokey, isn't it? I mean, it's quite hard to name a really famous female adventurer. You're going to prove me wrong.
In the field of ocean science, Sylvia Earle, National Geographic Explorer in Residence, Cindy Van Dover, first female submersible pilot.
But most people would name, you know, Ranulph Fiennes or Pen Hadow or whatever. It's quite hard to come up with a woman who's a household name.
I think basically that's right, but I think that is changing. And my experiences, having worked with a number of women and very much encouraged women into polar exploration, is that men are very focused and not good at collaborating and tend not to look after them very well. It's almost as though it's part of the mission is to get battered and bruised and come back looking butchered and having been through an experience, where women, in my experience, are highly collaborative naturally and look after themselves, which therefore maximise the likelihood of succeeding and reaching the far end. But I would stress that it used to be more about resources. That's still an issue that John and his colleagues are involved with, doing the exploration to find out how best to protect and manage the process of exploitation of resources. That's still going on, but I think that it's increasingly also about finding out how things work.
Pen Hadow, John Copley, thank you very much for joining me. Chris.
And that's it. Much more on our website, of course, channel4.com/news. You can reach us on Twitter. Follow Faisal if you want the latest from Cyprus. We're back tomorrow at 6:35. Until then, from Kathy and from me, that's Channel 4 News. Have a very good evening.
The weather does lots of different things, and so does the post office.
Good evening. Well, it's been snowing heavily today for central and northern parts of the UK, and there is more to come in the next 24 hours too. Weather warnings have been issued and further disruption is likely, worth bearing in mind if you do have to travel. So tonight, further heavy snowfall affecting central and northern parts of the UK. An additional 10 to 20 centimetres could fall overnight, particularly over the hills and mountains, drifting around in a strong to gale force easterly wind. Rain is more likely towards the far south of England, a risk of some localised flooding here and a risk of ice across the board as generally temperatures fall to freezing and locally just below. So tomorrow it's a wintry start to Saturday morning, cold and icy with further snowfall in many places. The snow will tend to ease for northern parts of the UK in the afternoon, but we could see some heavy snow further southwards across East Anglia, South East England, the Midlands into North East Wales. Here's the picture then in more detail, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it should be dry to finish off the day for the Channel Islands, southwestern parts of England and Wales too, but cold in the wind, and there could well be some heavy snow for East Anglia, South East England, including London, towards the Midlands and North East Wales. It will cause some problems if that does come off, but still a little bit of uncertainty, but 2 to 5 centimetres widely possible. And further northwards, cold and windy with occasional sunshine for northern England. A chilly day, temperatures really struggling to get much above freezing and even colder in that wind. Now for Sunday, it does stay cold, but any snow in the morning across England and Wales will gradually tend to fade away. Just the odd wintry shower for eastern coast, bright skies in the west, but feeling very cold, particularly in the wind. That's it from me. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.
The weather does lots of different things, and so does the post office.